Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening. Welcome to today's webcast, Why Chatbots Fail and How to Guarantee Yours Won't. I'm Dan Turchin, PeopleReign CEO. As you know, PeopleReign is the AI-first system of intelligence for IT and HR employee service. It's used by many of the most respected organizations around the world. I think in the next 30 minutes or so, you will see why. I'm super excited to be discussing this important topic, and of course, happy to be joined by my friend Scott Seaton, Strategic Consulting Practice Manager from our great partner, Thirdera. 74% of consumers say they'll switch brands if they have even one bad experience with a chatbot. Now, we're going to use that to kind of contextualize the rest of today's discussion and demo. 74%. Nothing ruins a customer relationship like interacting with a bot that doesn't have the right answer, doesn't understand the question, can't take action, or forces us into that dreaded robo death spiral where we're forced to just keep asking the same question over and over again. It always kind of reminds me of like a bad Seinfeld episode where you just feel like someone up there is watching you and laughing. When employees have the same experience with bots built for internal employee service, they have the same reaction. They just want to tear their hair out. They want to leave for another job. They feel like their time's being wasted. They're less engaged. And you know what? They stop working for you. We want to make sure that never happens. There's no excuse for delivering poor employee experiences, even though we're forced to tolerate them all the time when we're, let's say, rebooking a flight or trying to troubleshoot our cable modem or something like that. Well, today we're going to explain how to make sure that never happens again. Amazing technology, AI and otherwise, is now available so that you can turn those frustrating experiences into delightful ones. Let's go ahead and get started. So we've got a few topics that we're going to cover today. Before we jump into the discussion about why chatbots fail and how to guarantee yours won't, we're going to first hear a little bit from Scott Seaton, partner from Thirdera. And right after that, I'll pick up and we'll go through the top 5 tips. I'll give you a live demo of AI-driven automation for IT and HR employee service in action. And hopefully we'll leave you with some actionable advice that you can take back into your organization and become a leader and guarantee that your organization, your team is responsible for delivering experiences that delight your employees. So with that said, Scott, take it away.
Hi, Dan. Hi, everyone. Really happy to be on the webinar partnering with PeopleReign today. And for a lot of you probably know the Thirdera journey this past year, where we really came together as an organization, formed through 3 initial premier and elite partners, Evergreen Systems, Cerna Solutions, and NovaScale. And we've been adding to that family, and it's been an exciting year. We've added Service Line Solutions, which has really extended our Asia Pacific focus, as they were the 2020 APAC Partner of the Year last year. And then most recently, Epoxio has been added to the Thirdera family, and they're now been rebranded as Thirdera Digital. And it's exciting as we grow as an organization and we start talking about Thirdera Digital, and it's relevant to this conversation, really based on their focus on UI and UX and what is that user experience. As we go to the next slide, one of the things that's core to their design activities is being people-centric, and really understanding, who the consumers are, whether or not that's an employee or a colleague or someone external to the organization. How do we interact with them, and what does that user experience look like? And that's really critically important. And it ties back to the chat, right? Is how do we present chat to that community, and how do they consume it, and how do we make sure that that's a fantastic user experience? And the next slide kind of touches upon that. When you couple that people-centered design, a great user experience, we want to make sure that there's measurable outcomes. We've got metrics in place that can track, how we're trending, CSAT, NPS score, mean time to resolution, a whole variety of metrics that are measurable to really gauge, how that experience is fulfilling its purpose. And making sure, as an organization, we've got the right experts on the design side, on the process side, organizational change management, as well as the technology. And as always, we're very excited to be partnering with PeopleReign to bring, that innovation to our customers. And really, we try to differentiate ourselves from the global system implementers, and making sure that as we engage, we've got a full strategy and vision and roadmap on what this looks like. We're not just enabling a technology, we're really looking at what the future of work is going to be, and helping our customers get there on the time frame that makes sense for them. And there's a lot of indicators, a lot of studies out there that people want to self-service and solve their own problems. And how do we really make that a solution that's going to work for them? And for me, over the years, chat has been an interesting topic, and kind of a cautionary topic, where people haven't had great experiences a lot of times with chat. And even as we've gone from the prior to AI, our original chat systems that were people backed, there were limitations to the, depending on who was on the supporting that chat session, what knowledge they had, what training, what knowledge bases, that could be a good or negative experience. And as the evolution in chatbots came about, they haven't solved all those issues. And we have a bullet here talking about system of intelligence, and ServiceNow is really a system of record. It has a CMDB, it's got a lot of great data, it's got knowledge bases, it's got history that's stored in the system. But how do we go from a system of record to a system of intelligence, which is really driving the action and the resolution that will make it a fantastic experience? So there's a variety of topics when we start talking about the system of intelligence and emerging technologies. And a number of these bullet points here are really drivers to help this be a very effective, efficient, and positive outcome. And when we start talking about machine language and natural language processing, those things are helping our employees really engage, regardless of language, regardless of what input they put into the system, translating that into appropriate response. And in some cases, getting to the point where we're solving issues through that initial response and having a fully automated self-service experience. So on the next slide, we hit upon a whole variety of topics where this whole taking chatbot to this next level of enablement is really going to drive and increase our customer sat scores. It's going to help us again drive down some of our operational metrics. And when we look at the capabilities on this next slide and what the outcomes are, we can envision a self-service experience where people are seeing a resolution and their problem being completed right there in the moment. And we've got AI ops considerations that will tie in and make us infrastructure aware and understanding what is occurring within our data center, and actually prevent issues from occurring that will make those requests and incident numbers lower than the traditional systems that are in place today. where we're very much in a reactive mode.
Scott, that was fantastic. And thanks for joining. I remember months back, we had your CEO, Jason Woyan, on a previous webcast, and Thirdera was just kind of launching the brand, and there were then 4 companies that came together, and it's been just an amazing journey together. PeopleReign plus Thirdera, your team growing, our team growing, and I think we're both very proud of all the success our customers are having together. So thanks for joining. We'll bring you back on after this discussion in the demo if anyone in the audience has questions about the Thirdera approach.
Terrific.
Over the past 18 months or so, we went out and surveyed about 250 CIOs around the world, and we asked them to the extent they're using virtual agents, how's it going? And if they're not, why not? And those that had bad experiences, we asked them what's going wrong. And this next slide summarizes a bit of their feedback. So we were surprised to learn some of this, perhaps not surprised to learn other bits, but if you look at the top 3 reasons across these 250 CIOs that have experimented with systems of intelligence, why they say when they deployed a chatbot, it didn't work out so well. The number one vote getter in terms of CIOs that said this was one of the top reasons why their chatbot failed, they don't know what they don't know. So this is kind of a proxy for pushing employees down that robo-death spiral I mentioned, where they're having just silly conversations with the virtual agent. And the second top vote getter was they don't speak the language of employee service. And as you'll see, as we get into the demo and more of the feedback from the CIOs, what they mean there, if you kind of unpack this, if you look at some of the comments and the survey responses, is that very common topics, employees expect that they're going to be recognized. So when you think about SLAs and password resets and Wi-Fi and PTO and payroll, things that come up a lot of the time, the employees just expect that the virtual agent experience will be intelligent enough that they understand those concepts. And in fact, most of the virtual agents that failed because the virtual agents weren't very smart. So the chatbots were good at kind of small talk, greetings and closings, but anything related to actually deflecting calls autonomously didn't work out so well. And then third, we kind of summarized the feedback from a lot of the CIOs into this third point. Virtual agents that fail treat people like bots, and often they treat bots like people. So just to be really clear, your organization will get no credit if you give your chatbot a name and an icon and it's friendly and you put posters on the walls, but as soon as the employees start using it and they ask questions using natural language, it doesn't have the right answers. Or when they're asking to request paid time off or PTO, instead it tells them the PTO policy. These are things that frankly most chatbots will get wrong. And if you don't really have a deep understanding of the domain and the employee and the service experience that you're trying to deliver, then the experience falls flat. And the employee ends up feeling like they were treated like a bot. And as much as certainly at PeopleReign, we embrace the fact that your employees speak many languages and the chatbot should speak their language, let's never, ever make the mistake of forcing the employee to speak bot. That's a language nobody likes to speak, and that's a sure way to accelerate the pace at which your chatbot fails. Now, we'll be happy to provide this full list. I realize this is a bit of an eye test. Beyond the top 3, some of the items that came up frequently, 19% of respondents said the chatbot was just too complicated for users. It was like they had to read a manual about how to ask questions. And obviously, employees expect to be able to ask questions in their natural language. 13% of respondents said the biggest problem with their chatbot was it doesn't get smarter over time. So there's an expectation that if common questions aren't addressed now, they will be addressed soon, because you're expecting the virtual agent to behave like the smartest live agent. What's important about this webcast is not to rail on all the reasons why chatbots don't work. It's instead to leave you with some actionable tips. How do you guarantee yours will not fail like the ones that I was discussing? In fact, it's not as hard as you think. The key thing to think about is that you want a system of intelligence. It's not a chatbot. Chatbots don't solve any problems. they're just chatty. And oftentimes, because they set the expectation that they're human-like, they fail fast. Systems of intelligence get smarter over time. They speak the language of employee service for IT and HR, like the concepts I mentioned. A system of intelligence will be pre-configured to understand all of the nuances of the concepts that I mentioned. Organizations that say their chatbots have been successful say what they got right was that the experience must be as good, or oftentimes, or the expectation is that they're better than calling the help desk. If you want to deflect calls, think about the experience that the employee would have calling the help desk, which often involves waiting in line, maybe getting escalated. So there's some things that are reasons why employees will try the virtual agent the first time. When they do, you got to make sure that you nail the experience. The virtual agent must do more than just answer frequently asked questions, because frankly, if all it does is answer frequently asked questions, we call that knowledge search. The intelligent experience that your employees expect involves anything that they could do when they call the help desk. So that's managing tickets, submitting them, checking the status, updating the call notes, ordering goods and services from a service catalog, as well as answering questions. That's that unified self-service experience that you want to achieve with your virtual agent. That's what you're only going to get from a system of intelligence. A traditional chatbot, not going to get you anything other than, kind of that parlor trick where if it's a super common question, maybe there's a pre-configured answer, but usually not. Number 3, the virtual agent must speak the employee's language. So we want every employee to feel like they're first-class citizens. And one of the ways you achieve that is by making sure that you detect the language that they speak. And regardless of the language that maybe the content was authored in, you're presenting an answer to the employee in their native language. Any time of day, any day of week, any task that they want to accomplish, whether it's asking a question, dealing with a break fix issue, an incident, or ordering something from the catalog, you want to make sure all of those processes are available all of the time in the employee's native language. So a few of the other things that came up in terms of what the most successful virtual agents achieve, they get smarter over time. When they don't know, they ask for more detail. On the previous slide, one of the bits of feedback about ones that fail is they don't know what they don't know. So that kind of ability to detect when it's an unrelated topic, and ideally, ask if the employee wants to escalate to a live agent. Live agent handoff, it's so important if you want to make the virtual agent experience as good or better than calling the help desk. So really understanding what concepts are related to employee service, and then when something falls out of those bounds, the virtual agent should be smart enough to know that it's out of those bounds. Okay, so 5 tips. So we brought you together today to go through 5 things to make sure your virtual agent experience for your employees succeeds the first time. Tip number 1, do more than just answer frequently asked questions. And in this case, like I mentioned in the feedback from the CIOs who have successfully deployed virtual agents, that virtual agent should answer questions, it should fix problems, and it should order items. And that's what a system of intelligence does. So systems of intelligence have domain ontologies built into them that automate the process of understanding questions asked in natural language. Automating the life cycle of service requests is something that a system of intelligence does, which means it takes ownership for everything from when the question's asked or when the trouble ticket is submitted via the virtual agent, all the way through when that issue is resolved. So if that involves handing off to a live agent, telling the live agent how to fix the problem, helping the service owner do a better job at improving the availability of their service, these are all things that a system of intelligence does that spans the whole life cycle of the employee's service request. So it starts where the traditional chatbot leaves off. The traditional chatbot is just going to engage in chat, common topics, but a system of intelligence wraps that layer of intelligence horizontally around the whole life cycle of the request until the employee says, yep, I'm satisfied, that works. That's the way to achieve meaningful call deflection. Second tip, ensure that answers are easy to find. Semantic search is a good way to do this. So traditional knowledge search fails. Any of the systems of record out there were never designed to be AI first systems of intelligence. They were really just designed to capture artifacts associated with work once it was done. But the system of intelligence is there to figure out what work to do and do the work on behalf of the employee. So this is a very actionable tip. So when the employee goes to ask a question, make sure that the virtual agent understands what's being asked in the context of the work being done. So the system of intelligence knows, for example, where the employee is, what time of day it is, what language they speak, what their most recent issues have been, who they work with, whether or not they're traveling. A smart virtual agent takes all of that context into account. And that way, let's say, for example, an employee asks for information about the airport. Well, it turns out the airport is both a place where planes fly, but it's also a whole family of products related to Wi-Fi from Apple. So if you have a virtual agent that's backed by a system of intelligence, it's going to be able to understand, based on the context in which the airport question was asked, it's probably related to a Wi-Fi outage, and it's probably related to an employee working from home, having an issue resetting their Wi-Fi gateway. That leads us down a completely different path that leads to a more effective resolution of the issue. That's what it means to use semantic search, contextual search, to really make that experience feel intelligent and provide the employee with a better answer than they would get via any other channel. Tip number 3. So this is a really powerful one. So make sure that the system of intelligence is continuously learning. And part of what you should expect from a system of intelligence, not a chatbot. Chatbots are just drones. They just do exactly what they've been programmed to do and nothing else. And you saw why that, some of the feedback indicated that ones that seem dumb are the ones that are just a chatbot. But in the case of a system of intelligence, this tip says, make sure that your system of intelligence is intelligently providing examples of where there are questions being asked that the virtual agent can't successfully answer. So over time, it's going to detect what it's not able to answer based on feedback from the employee and improve exactly what you'd expect. So what I'll show you in a bit in the demo is a system of intelligence that comes pre-configured with 5 million concepts related to employee service. And with 5 million concepts, you can guarantee that when questions are being asked that it doesn't recognize, it's going to quickly adapt and provide a report like this that says, look, for this topic, this is coming up a lot. In fact, it's trending upward. You could reduce your overall call volume by 19% if you provided better content in the virtual agent related to account unlocks. So the MTTR for account unlocks is currently 7 hours. It represents an opportunity to deflect 19% of your overall call volume. So that's actionable, it's intelligent, and it's based on this awareness of 5 million concepts related to IT and HR. Security settings in this example, this is what we call a knowledge gaps report. Clear the opportunity to reduce overall call volume, improve the employee experience, and most germane to this conversation, improve adoption at tier 0. We always talk about shifting left, shift the burden left to self-service. Well, this is a great way to do it. Use a system of intelligence that's smart enough to know what the virtual agent can't do to help you plug those gaps in what the virtual agent has that it can provide in the form of answers. So that ability to continuously improve the quality of the experience is really essential. That's what your employees expect. 4th tip, an omni-channel experience. So it turns out in the survey results, it was really important that employees don't want to send an email. They don't want to wait on hold calling the help desk. They really want to engage wherever they are. And so it's incumbent on you to deploy a virtual agent backed by a system of intelligence that meets the employee where they are. Another key component that we heard over and over again in the survey results is don't penalize the employee just because the virtual agent doesn't have the right answer. So the experience of handing off to a live agent and using AI to make the live agent smarter is just as important as making the virtual agent smart. So meet them where they are. That could be a voice channel. It could even be an asynchronous channel like email. It could be SMS. It could be mobile. It could be desktop. It could be a collaboration tool like Slack or like Teams, but you want to make sure that at the moment of truth, when the employee has a question or needs to order something or something's broken, your service experience meets them wherever it is they are at that moment of truth. Last but not least, before we get into a bit of a demo, make sure that the virtual agent not just speaks the native language of your employees, which I mentioned previously, but also speaks the language of employee service. So systems of intelligence that have domain ontologies that improve over time, that's kind of what they expect. So whether they speak Greek or Japanese or Portuguese or English, the virtual agent should greet them in their language and automatically translate whatever the language was that the answer was authored in, oftentimes English, but sometimes non-English, but it should automatically translate the language of the underlying content into the native language of the employee. That's so important, but equally or perhaps more important is being able to understand or disambiguate those concepts. I mentioned the example of an airport. Other examples are topics related to, let's say, benefits. So oftentimes organizations will brand their benefits program. And so being able to speak the language of employee service it's essential. It assumes that the virtual agent understands that, let's say, your benefits program is called the Champions Program, or it's an internal acronym or something like that. The system of intelligence should be smart enough to realize that questions related to the Champions Program, even though they're very much specific to your organization, those are actually related to benefits, maybe to gym subsidies, maybe to tax policies, or maybe to bonus programs. So being able to connect those internal specific concepts to kind of generic concepts that would apply to any organization, that's what a system of intelligence does. That's what your employees expect from a experience with a virtual agent that's actually going to successfully deflect the calls and generate an experience that they're going to want to come back to. When we talk about being better than sending an email or calling the help desk, that's what we mean. They feel like they're a first-class citizen. They want to engage that virtual agent, not because there's a cute avatar associated with it, or not because it comes up with some kind of humorous greeting for them. You get absolutely zero credit for that. You get credit when it answers their question, when it successfully orders their items, when it successfully diagnoses and resolves issues that they have when maybe their technology doesn't work. That's the thing to focus on. What do you say we get into the fun part? Off we go. So I'm going to do today's demo in a combination of interfaces. This interface is a ServiceNow service portal. And in the ServiceNow service portal, we've embedded the world's smartest virtual agent. And it looks something like this. It's very subtle. This same virtual agent can be embedded in Microsoft Teams, in Slack. You can call it via voice. It can interface via SMS, anything you'd expect. And when I go ahead and invoke it, it's going to detect who I am. It's going to greet me. It's going to detect the native language that I typically speak. And now as I start to interact with it, you'll see how it's the smart experience that kind of maps to all 5 of those recommendations, and certainly doesn't do any of the things that led to the frustrating experiences in the slide I shared earlier. So how can I help? Let's ask it some questions here. Let's start off with a common one. I need to reset my password. The canonical question. Oftentimes, as you probably know, if you're attending this webcast, it represents about 1/3 of all inbound requests, not because employees haven't tried the self-service option, but frequently because they tried and the system's down, or they don't have access to it, or they were locked out because of too many incorrect attempts. This is a smart experience. So this virtual agent says, it looks like you need your SSO password reset. It actually checked to see what the user was locked out of. I've just initiated a password reset workflow. I will also show you this on the back end, so you see, what those domain ontologies do to make sure the intent is recognized so fluently. I actually did just receive a notification on my real cell phone. This is a no smoke and mirrors, asking me to reset my password. So that followed. In this case, this organization is using Okta for password reset, and I'm going to go ahead and give it feedback. Say, yeah, that was an amazing experience. That was sure easier than calling the help desk or sending an email and waiting around. Maybe I need to access Word, and so I know the Office suite, I call it O365. So, and this is a case where domain ontologies are really important. So I call it O365. You may not, maybe, I think Microsoft calls it Office 365, but I could also ask for Word or PowerPoint or Excel, and all of those concepts relate to this same underlying request. So O365, so in this case, virtual agent picked that up. Nobody had to script that. When you speak the language of employee service and you can recognize 5 million concepts, you just get that a request for O365 is kind of like a lot of other concepts related to the Office suite of productivity apps. So in this case, again, an intelligent experience. It takes action, right? It doesn't just answer a question. You've been pre-approved to access O365. Click here to register with your AD credentials. So pretty smart. I'll give you another example where a virtual agent that's smart and backed by a system of intelligence can disambiguate a request that's common, like, what's our PTO policy? I'm not actually asking you to take PTO time. I just want to know, what am I eligible for? So in this case, so it's going to come back. It's going to recognize that I just wanted to understand the policy, and it gives me the policy. Now, just to show you what you can expect from a smart virtual agent experience, if I instead asked, let's say, now I need to request time off. By the way, it's pretty good at catching misspellings. In this case, I did use PTO. PTO is an acronym. It knew that PTO is related to paid time off. And in this case, it says, why don't you just fill in this form and you can take time off. So I give it some context, I submit it. In this case, it'll go ahead and create a request from my manager, and off it goes. So really smart experience. It can order stuff. It can request items from the catalog. It can manage my tickets. So it speaks the language of employee service. So if I say, what's the status of my tickets, it'll understand. The latest set of tickets that I've submitted, who they're assigned to, what the SLA is, any work notes or comments. That's pretty smart experience. Let's see, I'm going to sign off because I want to show you a few other things before we wrap up the webcast. So a good virtual agent will do is at least understand when it doesn't need to do anything at all. So in this case, it says, it recognizes that's the end of the conversation. So it wasn't being asked to do anything. It's my pleasure. Before you leave, here's a cool fact. So you can have a little bit of fun with it. But again, the focus is on answering questions, managing tickets, ordering items, and all through that lens of a set of domain ontologies that understands millions of concepts related to IT and HR. That's something you would never get from a system of record. That's something you will only get from a system of intelligence. So let's see, let me show you a couple other things. I mentioned the value of a live agent handoff. So if at any point in time, the employee isn't happy with the service they're getting from the virtual agent, they can just say, live agent, or I need help, or anything like that. And it'll then embed the right answer in the context of the incident, the request, et cetera, that will actually show the live agent how to fix the problem the right way the first time. So this is what we mean by automating the full life cycle. So in this case, I'll show you the live agent gets notified what the right subcategory is. The live agent gets notified about how to fix the problem. So in this case, there's this knowledge article embedded. This is actually a PeopleReign app called Recommend, and it shows for this topic, I need to update McAfee on my Mac, how to prepare for a macOS update. So I'm going to go ahead and using the PeopleReign card, I'm going to click the digital pin, and it's going to go ahead and retrain the model. And just like that, even though I may be a novice on the help desk, I just became an expert because PeopleReign told me exactly what to do to resolve this employee's issue. So now we're in the administration console, and we have two applications embedded, Insights and the Workbench. And first off, Insights will show me just a summary of what I need to know as a service owner about all of the automated interactions that are occurring in the virtual agent. So I see how many conversations, we call these spark lines. And this shows me that just today, the virtual agent has engaged in 184 conversations. It's deflected about 1,300 tickets. It created 673 tickets, and then it escalated to a live agent and told the live agent how to fix the problem. And that's across about 200 unique end users. Similarly, I can look at all of the other applications as well and get a summary of what's going on. So classify, this is the application that fills in all the fields in the form. So you might have noticed when I showed you the live agent view, it had already been pre-populated with all of the right values. And that's because you have a model like this, an AI model, we call the application classify, and it's looking at how issues are being routed, what the SLA should be, whether or not the employee is a VIP. Is there a CI, a configuration item associated with this issue? Is there a knowledge article? Taking all of that contextual information into account and being able to fill in the values of the fields in that form the right way the first time, and that prevents tickets from kind of languishing in the wrong queue. So I'm going to cut over. I'm going to show you a bit about how the workbench works. This is where I can see kind of an interface to that domain ontology that consists of 5 million concepts. So this is intelligence built into the whole process. So I don't need to be a data scientist to be able to administer a smart virtual agent like that. In fact, I'll show you around. I'm going to go ahead and show you a snippet is basically a pre-configured dialogue. And I'll show you how these things are pretty smart. So one of the ones I showed you was the SSO password reset workflow. In this case, this comes pre-configured with the system. It understands 5 million concepts. So things like this are child's play. It shows all the languages that this particular snippet is available in. This is the template that you saw in the live agent demo. This shows from the domain ontologies, it's pulled out whatever, maybe 50 or so different ways that this intent can be expressed. Similarly, we've embedded an action in this snippet. So you might recall that when I said I wanted my password reset, it actually went out and did the reset for me and sent me an email via Okta orchestration. So in this case, I see that one of the advanced features is this ability to trigger a particular webhook-based workflow from this snippet. So it's been pre-configured to invoke this Okta password reset flow. It's been pre-configured to create a ticket. If in fact we want to create an artifact associated with the work that was done, all of this comes pre-configured right within the snippet. Let's say I want to add a language. In this case, this snippet is available in these 6 languages. But maybe I say, my employees speak a different language. I can go ahead and look at the list of all the supported languages. And maybe I want to add, let's say, Filipino to that list, and off I go. So very simple to administer. All of the kind of heavy lifting of the AI models, the data management, the drift detection, the algorithm selection, that's all managed via these data pipelines. This is all semi-automated. So this is essentially hands-off from the perspective of the owner of the system of record. This is everything that you get from a system of intelligence that automates that full life cycle of the employee service request. So the future of employee service is that kind of experience. The experience that leads to, in many cases, 60 to 70% call volume deflection. The system of intelligence wraps a layer of intelligence horizontally around the entire life cycle, the request process. It goes out and diagnoses the problem. It understands the employee. It's able to resolve it. No escalations typically needed to a live agent. That's going to reduce your cost per ticket, reduce your MTTR, dramatically improve your self-service adoption, dramatically improve your customer sat, and then it's going to continuously learn. Key requirements for a system of intelligence. So as you think about what's the right system of intelligence to layer on top of your system of record, you want to make sure it automates algorithm selection. Obviously, you saw in the example, I didn't need to understand which algorithm was being used to make those recommendations or to detect the intent. Automate the tuning of the hyperparameters for the algorithms, automate the selection of features, get better all the time by actively learning from the feedback from the users, know what it doesn't know. If, for example, you ask that virtual agent about the weather in Memphis, it would say, I don't know, because it's not a weather bot. It understands anything related to 5 million employee service concepts, but it also knows what it doesn't know. Use domain ontologies. I shared with you the value of layering on top of that virtual agent experience, those domain ontologies. Be able to classify across domains. So the approach that you take to an HR issue is very different from an IT issue, or let's say a finance issue. Make sure it's easy to configure. You saw how mere mortals can go into that administration console and see what's going on and edit and be a part of that optimal virtual agent experience. Make sure that all of the AI-based decisions can be explained. No black boxes. They should all be explainable. And lastly, make sure it does all of the things that an employee expects from a self-service portal. It can use conversational AI, but it can also make predictions. It makes recommendations to live agents. It can forecast or provide predictive analytics to be able to anticipate, like what you saw in that insights dashboard, what's about to happen based on what has been happening. So with that said, I know there's a lot of content. Hopefully you got a sense of why chatbots fail, but more important, what's that modern service experience that employees expect that will guarantee yours will be wildly successful? As part of the sponsorship by Thirdera, we are offering a free AI briefing. So we'll configure kind of a version of some of these tips and some of this advice just for your organization. It's available if you scan that QR code on the screen. We'll go ahead and follow up with you. We'll schedule that for your organization. Even if you're not ready for a system of intelligence, it's usually kind of good practice to start the dialogue. We would love for everyone on this webcast to be kind of the internal leaders, be the lightning rod, be the one identified with bringing this kind of innovation to the employee experience. I said we'd leave the last few minutes for your questions. I see a lot of them streaming in. I'm going to apologize in advance if we don't get to them, but one that let's see, I'll take this one first. What if so thank you, this is from Sam. Sam says, what if the language of the knowledge articles is different from the language of the employee? I think I might have mentioned this briefly, Sam, but what you actually saw is in real time, those snippets are translated into any of those supported languages. So even though the underlying content in the case of that password reset snippet was in English, if I interact with that snippet because it's detected based on natural language in the virtual agent, then it's actually going to, in real time, translate the English content to a snippet of virtual agent conversationally driven experience in the native language of the speaker. Good question. Next question. So how does this compare to ServiceNow? So good question. I was demoing in ServiceNow. I know a lot of you on this call probably use ServiceNow as a system of record. ServiceNow is not a system of intelligence. So when we go back to kind of what to expect from a system of intelligence, none of this you would get from a system of record. So a system of intelligence has those domain ontologies. So 5 million concepts related to HR and IT are built into the system of intelligence. The ability to automatically improve accuracy by taking feedback from the users, automatically introduce better answers through what we call active learning, automatically deploy new content, automatically propose gaps in the knowledge to be able to deflect a higher volume of calls, automatically provide those kind of predictive analytics so that service owners know what to do to suppress subsequent issues in the future. All of this kind of automation is what you get from a system of intelligence. As I mentioned previously, and Scott mentioned as well, the system of record is the right tool to be able to capture artifacts associated with work that has been done. But the system of intelligence is where what needs to be done happens, the automated decision associated with what work to do and how to do it. The system of intelligence is doing the work, figuring out what work to do, automating the decision-making process, using AI to automate the full life cycle of the employee experience. Systems of intelligence augment systems of record, but they're not the same. And I think anyone using a system like ServiceNow for a traditional ITSM process, knowledge management, managing the request process would agree it's a phenomenal workflow system and it's a phenomenal system of record, but the future of work involves layering a system of intelligence that can automate the delivery of the work on top of a traditional system of record. Let's see, the last question we have time to take, and maybe Scott, if I could hand this off to you. Question from Amelia asked, where can I learn more? Do you want to maybe take us home with an answer to that one?
Definitely. And as Dan mentioned, if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to our site and we can get you registered for that AI briefing. And together with PeopleReign, we get really excited having these conversations, and I get excited every time I see your demos, Dan. I think it really kind of hits home, because our most of our organizations that we're interacting with for the first time, they're sharing their challenges around chatbot, or their aspirations of where they want to be, and partnering with you, we're able to not only talk about it and conceptualize it, but make it happen, and make it happen quickly in an automated fashion. So it's very powerful. And again, appreciate you including us in this webinar today.
Scott and Team Thirdera, thanks for joining. So again, this is Dan Turchin, host of today's webcast, CEO of PeopleReign. And please take us up on the offer. Scan the QR code, get the AI briefing. It's a personalized version of this conversation tailored for your organization. I promise you you'll come away smarter as a result. And even if the timing isn't right for your organization, you'll learn a lot about the future of work. Today's demo was about, I don't know what it was, 10 or 15 minutes. There's hours worth of amazing capabilities of that virtual agent and the system of intelligence. And let's make sure that you leave here being a little bit smarter, and being in a position where you can be that lightning rod. Let this define your career. Be the one who gets credit for kind of redefining the employee experience. All of your global employees. This is where it starts. It's all about the system of intelligence, augmenting the system of record, and it's all about making sure your virtual agent is wildly successful. So